Welcome to the Slammers Weekly Podcast. I am Bo Garino. On today's episode, I am joined by Drexel head golf coach and avid gap golfer, Ben Feld. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Absolutely. And perfect timing. You know, you guys are coming off an historic fall season in which you were the only team in the whole country to go undefeated. Really looking forward to diving more into that. I got a bunch to ask you there, but before doing so, I want to get to know a little bit more about you. You know, this is our first time chatting, and as a fellow Gap area golfer who follows the circuit pretty intently, I know your name not only from coaching, but also being a regular contender on the Gap circuit, most notably winning the 2017 Gap Mid-Am. From a golf perspective, how did you get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, you never know when you put a lot of work into golf over the years. I played collegiately at Drexel, had a pretty underwhelming career there. You enter the workforce and I mean, I've always loved competing. I've always loved, what competitive golf reveals in someone, and I've loved the feeling of being kind of inside the lines there. So did everything that I could to find a profession that allowed me to continue to pursue amateur golf aspirations and to work on my game. And I felt like with maturity, with age, with experience, with life experience, that I've been able to just continually get a little bit better year over year. And 32 now, and that's the beauty of our game, right? I sit here and I still feel like even though I have a 7-month-old sleeping 100 feet from me, I still feel like there's opportunity and there's upside to continue to work within the framework that my life provides me now, which is different than a few years ago. But that there's still, us golfers, I said this to you pre-show, but we're sick people, right? And we're always chasing something. And I've just always loved what I've been chasing within competitive golf, and I've been fortunate to do a couple of cool things.
Yeah, no, I can certainly relate. There's just so much depth to this game. And like you said, as you start uncovering more and more things, and it's cool because like you said, you feel like there's still so much runway ahead. And I think that's what keeps us coming back.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, who knows? We were chatting pre-show also about a guy like Chip Lutz, and like how amazing what the longevity of this game could look like if you treat yourself in the game properly.
Yeah, exactly. If you get into that sustainability mode, and yeah, you could be playing another, like what he's doing. I mean, with another 40 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's cool. Feels like a good game to invest your energy in and be addicted to, like we said.
Totally.
So getting right into the fall season, you guys had 4 tournaments on the docket. You win all 4 tournaments. Flashback to the beginning of the season. What were your expectations coming in? Like at that point, what would a successful fall campaign have looked like? What does it be? 1 win, 2 wins? Like what were you thinking back in early September?
Yeah, I mean, expectations, it's an awesome word to start with, because we got essentially our entire group back from last year, returning really their top 8 guys from last year's roster. And on paper, we had a nice season last year. We won a real quality event down in Florida in February. But we really kind of plateaued after that. I think everybody involved with the program really felt like the group had a lot of upside, which we showed that we did. Went out to Bandon Dunes, didn't play great out there. We were down in Puerto Rico and had a chance to play well in the second part of the tournament and beat some really good teams, and didn't capitalize down there. But beyond the results, I felt like maybe after we won in Florida, we started to smell ourselves a little bit. And we kind of put our guard down. And I think that over the off season, we were very candid with the group, knowing that we were getting essentially the same group back. And they admitted to the same, where they felt like they had really accomplished something, and that not that it was good enough, but if you lose a little bit of that edge, everybody's so good now that it's gonna reveal itself. So from an expectation standpoint going into this year, we had talked a lot about like really just measuring the days that we were able to put in both over the summer and throughout the fall. If our preparation could get better, if our accountability to one another could get better, if our intensity on a daily basis could get better, and this is both coaches and players. Everybody kind of, had to look in the mirror. But if we could really hone in and look to the guy to the left and to the right of us and check those boxes on a daily basis, that we were going to be happy with where we were at the end of the fall. So really had no idea what to expect. I mean, I knew we had a talented group. I knew we were capable of winning every tournament that we played in, given our schedule this fall. Did I think we were going to do that? No, I mean, just it's hard to do that every time that you tee it up. But from an expectation standpoint, we were really going into this year planning on, measuring intangibles, things outside of results, and we put our heads down. And then you're going into the last round of the last tournament, and you've really built these habits over the past several months. The guys knew exactly what was at stake. They talked about it. It was another day in the office for them because they had put in all the hard work. It was now just their time to show up and do what they had been, preparing to do. And all the credit in the world to them. They played great from the start of the fall all the way to the end. But I credit that to consistency each and every day, which is what people from the outside don't see looking in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was a part of a college program, D1, that didn't have that, and yeah, you can definitely see the difference. And like you said, these results aren't going to get achieved without that kind of structure in place. People just think you just show up and play the tournaments, and that's obviously not the case. Looking at your schedule right now, you guys started off with a Temple Invitational. You open up with a 6-shot victory, which the Temple Invite's a good local measuring stick to see where you stand up against the Philly schools, particularly the host team Temple, who seemingly always puts out a formidable team. Brian Quinn has done a nice job with the program over there over the years. How did this win feel? Was there any surprise element, or was it more just like, hey, we took care of business against the teams in our backyard, and this is kind of what we expect to do?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you win in college golf, you never know when the next one's going to be. So you enjoy it, and we were excited. First event of the year. I think that we maybe had a small lead after the first round, but to get to kind of battle out that second day with Brian and now Clay at Penn, who's doing an awesome job so far there, and rebuilding that program. To get to kind of battle it out in Philly style was awesome. I mean, we trailed by maybe 4 or 5 shots as we made the turn. And then there's a stretch of hard holes on the back at 19-12. And we played them better. It was, I think, a feather in our cap. I think it was a confidence boost because you put yourself in position. There's no guarantee that you're going to close it out just because you may or may not be the best team or the best player in the field. So to do it certainly kind of got the ball rolling for us. And going into a tournament knowing that you're the best team is all good and well. And we used the phrase "let the cream rise" quite a bit this fall, and we had to prove in each event that we were the cream. And by the sheer nature of the laws of gravity, if you will. There's either enough time in the tournament or there isn't to allow the cream to rise. And, we smelled the roses and were able to kind of kick things off positively.
And then you take the boys down south to Western Carolina's tournament, the JT Poston Invitational. A little bit different than the local stuff. I mean, you got teams in the field like Augusta, Elon, Georgia Southern. I mean, these are perennial top 100 programs, right? You guys go and shoot 13 under for a 6-shot victory. I mean, this had to be a really sweet one. I know you said, hey, every tournament we teed up this year, we felt like we could win. But this one, you had to feel like, if you were doing some odds, you guys probably wouldn't have been the favorite here, right?
Yeah, no, this one felt different, for sure. It almost felt a little bit like a horse race in that, we didn't play our best golf in the first round. I want to say we were 6 or 7 shots back of whoever was leading, maybe after the first round. Kind of made our move in the second round of the 36-hole day. I think we played the best round of the tournament in that afternoon round, and we're able to position ourselves with a 3-shot lead going into the final day. And then, after making our move, you either have enough juice left in the tank to close out the race or you don't. And we were able to, it wasn't our best golf that we played the last day, but the place was firm, fast, dealing with some elevation stuff. And the guys were just rock solid. And to close that out against, like you said, really quality teams, was like, okay, this group might be diff. These guys might have something a little bit different than we've had in the past.
Are these teams going, who the hell is Drexel at this point? Was there any point in the tournament where you kind of felt like you snuck up on these guys? I mean, I can't imagine that being, looking at all these Southern programs are used to competing with each other early in the season, a team coming up from North, a small Philly school. Like, I can't imagine you guys being on too many teams' radar.
Yeah, I sure hope that's the case. It might not be anymore, but I love the thought of that. We've crossed paths with a lot of these schools in the past. I think
Mhm.
Elon came in second in that event. So we obviously know Don and those guys very well. When Coach Eckberg from Western Carolina offered to have us down, I can't imagine that he thought he'd be handed the trophy over to us after 54 holes. So I sure hope that we're sneaking up on people.
Yeah, so then you move into the Big Five Championship at Sunnybrook, solid Philly golf course. Just a one-day tournament. So look, one day anything can happen. Like you said, the longer the race, the more time left on the clock, the longer that cream has to rise. One day, uh, not much there. You go ahead and you win by 3 shots. You take care of business. Another close one that you eked out against the local schools. At this point, is the clean sweep a thought in your mind heading to the final tournament of the year? Like, at what point did it click to say, like, holy crap, we could just run the tables here?
Yeah, I can't speak for when the guys started to think about it. I mean, I know that they did at some point. How can you not? Before the big five, the thought had crept that I had said something to AJ, my assistant. I was like, I don't think that this is crazy. But you still got to play. You still got to play the schedule that's in front of you. You still got to take care of business. The big five was a dangerous one because of what you just said. Only 18 holes. These other local teams have really good players. They're great programs, and again, wasn't a wire to wire. We're on the 12th, 13th, 14th hole. And I think Temple was a few shots ahead of us. And we had to play those last few holes better. And guys found a way to do that. But I think after that, all kind of sights were set on the OBX one, which had been elusive for us over the past few years. And we all knew very well what was at stake. And the stage was kind of set.
And you ended up winning that by 13 shots, which is just, I mean, once again, it wasn't, OBX is a solid field, right? I couldn't believe this stat when I read this. You guys were 24 under on the par fives, which was 17 shots better than the field. Just some real dominance going on out there. And as you're watching this unfold, watching your team perform like this with an undefeated season on the line, yeah, at what point during the tournament are you like, wow, I'm watching something truly special unfold here?
Yeah, during the final round, I thought that I want to say, I mean, we have a lot of experience down on that golf course. You need experience down on that golf course. There's a lot of risk reward. It's a golf course that favors aggressive. If you're coming there for the first time, it kind of begs you to play conservatively in a lot of spots, but really it rewards being aggressive, especially on the par fives. There are some areas that really pinch you in with driver, but strategically we've determined. I've been going down there to this golf course since 2010 as a player. So I've seen countless rounds down there, and truly have an understanding of what the golf course is asking. And I think that the experience for the first time really this year, the greens were very firm. It was a little breezy, so it offered a unique test that we don't usually get down there. So I think that the experience that a lot of our guys have down there really came to light. But yeah, as we made the turn to the back nine, and I think we had dusted off an early storm from East Carolina, who maybe cut it to one or two, or had the lead, or was very close on the front nine. Guys kind of really started to execute high level shots, to stick to the game plan, to stay aggressive, and to sit back on the last 4 or 5 holes there, which can pack some drama in. A couple of reachable par fives with some trouble, a drivable par four mixed in there, a tough par three. To watch the calm with which they played those holes with what was at stake was really just a testament to the prep that they had done, to the work that they had done every day. They were ready for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, 13 shots at some point, it sounded like it turned into a victory lap on that back nine, which has got to be so cool to watch, to see your team pull away like that. Like I said, with all that on the line, and all the work and everything you guys had done to get to that point, really just some cool stuff. And you were talking about the tournament, being familiar with the course, and this leads into my next question on tournament scheduling. How much strategy is there in tournament scheduling? Is it more just like, hey, we'll take the best tournament we can get, or is it more, hey, we're looking for winnable tournaments? And how much does the course and the geographical area come into play?
Definitely a balance of all of that, right? I mean, we've pushed the envelope a little bit and been fortunate enough to be invited to Stanford's tournament, to Bandon Dunes, to Chambers Bay, to the Puerto Rico event hosted by UNC Greensboro that we've played. And we're understanding that we're not getting an invite every single year to a lot of those events. But we do want to provide a unique and elite experience for the student athletes. So it's a balance of the competitive integrity of the schedule, where if we just chased the Stanfords all day, every day, I don't know that we would be doing our program a service. Also, there's cost prohibitiveness to doing a lot of that as well. So, we're working within a framework. But also, when you find a tournament, like we went down to the JT Poston for the first time ever this fall, you're down in the mountains of North Carolina, about an hour west of Asheville. I mean, talk about a slice of heaven of the earth down there. Bent grass, which was a huge positive to find down there. And just a tournament that was run first class, start to finish. And you find a tournament like that really provides an awesome experience. It doesn't have to have an elite field or the best teams in the country to be an awesome tournament. You really just want to look at, how your guys felt throughout the week. Did it feel like a special event for them to be there? Like the course and the host school, really took pride in the event. And if you find an event like that, you've really got to latch on until they don't have you back. And we've been doing that down in the Outer Banks. Coach Murray at Old Dominion just does a phenomenal job. The Kilmarnock Golf Club staff does an awesome job, and we've been going there since heck before I was a player. We've been going down to the Outer Banks. So definitely chasing competitiveness, but also experience. The experience that the student athletes get at the tournaments is something that we really, really value.
Yeah, you were saying firm and hilly. I figured it had to be North Carolina, because there's not a whole lot of firm and hilly going on down there.
No, no, we found the one area of the state that has that.
Yeah, I've never played golf up there. I gotta check it out at some point. Where this is the important question: where are all these trophies going? I mean, I saw pictures of some of these things, and I mean, really, some of these things are huge. I mean, where are you lining these things up at?
Yeah, well, I don't have a desk anymore down on campus. They're lined up in our golf center down on campus. We're working on fundraising for a trophy case in there. But the short answer is that we don't have a place to put them. So which is I guess a good and bad problem to have, mainly good in that we have the trophies that need a home. So we're working on putting something together to, house the hardware, if you will.
I'd like to think your alumni could step up and get you guys a trophy case. I'm sure you'll get that figured out.
I think
But
so.
like you said, a good problem to have. I want to take a step back and get into some insights on how you built this team. I've always personally been really intrigued with recruiting in college golf, because you get such a small number of players, and you're trying to get a read on kids who may not even know much about themselves at this point in their lives. I know I sure didn't, right? And yeah, some kids get to college, they take a huge step forward, they get in a program like yours with structure and the right coaching and the opportunity to play, and they just get, and they're still maturing and getting better, and they just take off. And then you have other kids who just seemingly forget how to play golf, right? And I think we've seen extreme examples of this right in our backyard here in Philly. You seem to have done a great job of avoiding the players who regress and taking the players who get to the next level and excel. And I'm just wondering, like, how much of it is swing mechanics? Like, how much of it is character based? Like, I want to hear what the components of your successful formula have been.
Yeah, I mean, so from a swing mechanic standpoint, if they have great swing mechanics, it's in no thanks to me. It's an area that I stay far away from.
Okay.
But the intangibles are so important in the getting to know you part of the recruiting process. I mean, at the end of the day, you're you're doing educated gambling on 17-year-old kids,
Hmm.
and it's hard, right? You don't know you don't know a whole lot, and they don't know what they don't know. So you're really just trying to do the best that you can to dive in to the character makeup and what their aspirations are. What is, do they have a roadmap to how they want to get there? Do they know what they need or want out of a coach? And a lot of times those answers you don't come away with. And there's a lot of gut involved, or you build relationships with other swing coaches or around the country. And when they get if you're lucky enough that they call you with a kid who has a lot of ability, and you get an at bat, and you got to develop the kid. So the way that we look at it is, we're never competing with Alabama or Texas for high school kids that, are in the top 50 of their class coming out of high school. But we've got to find kids that are on a trajectory that are getting better year over year, that haven't stopped getting better, and that also kind of pass the gut feeling test of the recruiting process, that could maybe play for those schools come their junior or senior year. So at a place like Drexel, we have to remain developmentally focused, right? You have to be focused on growing talent from kids coming in as freshmen to really being contributors to a good team, by their second, third year. Um, the transfer portal has definitely changed things for us over the past couple of years. If you look at our roster, three of our top six guys from the fall are transfers. At the top, there's Drew Nicholas, who transferred to us from North Carolina State. There's Oscar Maxfield, who transferred to us from the University of Utah. And Tafadzwa Namukandiwa transferred to us from West Texas College, a junior college, a couple of years ago. And all of these kids were great junior players that went to, Tafadzwa's story is a little bit different being from Zimbabwe, but Drew and Oscar being really great players that were just in, not to say the wrong situation, but not a situation that allowed them to flourish competitively, to come into a group knowing that we had full confidence in them and then to see what they can become. It's a combination of being opportunistic with guys looking for the right second opportunity when they don't get the first one right, which is happening more and more often now. And also finding, incoming freshmen that want to be coached, want to be developed, are hungry to improve, and are on a trajectory where they're continuously getting better.
When you're doing your recruiting, at what point do you cut off the results, right? Like you like, hey, I don't care about high school golf. Do I not care about anything beneath like AJG? Like at what point are results like just deemed meaningless to you?
Like at what competitive level they
Yeah.
become.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And look, I'll look at everything, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I get plenty of resumes that say, "Hey, coach, I'm a junior. I average 41 in our high school matches, but my best golf's ahead of me." And awesome, I appreciate you reaching out. Feel free to continue to send me results as you get better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting a ton of weight into to high school golf. Let's say I think it's a little bit of a different animal. Where, but when you look at local association junior stuff, AJGA stuff, obviously, and then USGA qualifiers, all of that. I mean, we'll look at everything, and I'm a believer that if you shoot a low score, you shoot a low score. Like that's in there somewhere. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be in an AJGA or the US Junior to mean something. Um, but I think we weigh everything a little bit differently, and some things are just more eye opening than others. But everything's a data point to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to your point about doesn't matter what tournament it is. I mean, knowing the courses so well in the area, you and I, like you know when someone goes out and shoots a 72 at a rolling green or something, you go, okay, wow, this kid's got some game. Doesn't like you said, doesn't really matter what it's in.
Totally. Yeah. And when you're recruiting locally, I mean, I think that changes the complexion of how you're able to assess the kid, right? I mean, you go shoot 65 at a Patterson Cup qualifier at Lulu, like that stands out, and
Mm-hmm.
what that means. In a different section, I might not know what that means, right? It might be very impressive, but I still see the 65 and I have to take note of it
Mm-hmm.
and understand it. But when you're recruiting locally and having a pulse on the scene like we do, you really know what every score means, like what the story behind it is.
What I think is most impressive about your guys' rise since you've been
the coach there is just some of the challenges that I'd assume you face with recruiting, being.
I'm thinking from a national level, right? Like you're getting these kids that come up from like programs, like you said, Utah and some of these Southern programs. You guys are in the heart of Philly, right? Northeast weather. I've never been to your facilities, but I'm assuming it probably doesn't stand up against, a Utah or some of these, perennial top 100 programs. And then even from like a local perspective, I'm looking at it like you guys are competing against schools like a Villanova that's out on the main line and is within, 5 minutes of, some great tracks and like you guys being pigeonholed in the city. How much does all of this restrict your recruiting? Like how much have you seen this maybe limit you in some aspects throughout your coaching so far?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are definitely some unique challenges and things that we can't hide from when it comes to recruiting, and we try to be as upfront and transparent about those things in every recruiting conversation that we have, right? 25 minutes to the closest golf course that we're going to play. Our campus is located right in the heart of University City. I've been begging them for years to knock down the library and build a short game facility, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So we're
That's a tough
limited
sell.
to, yeah, right. I mean,
The
we're limited
library for a short game
to,
facility. Yeah, let's
so
let's take out something that benefits the whole school and for something that benefits seven
these
people,
9
right?
kids are the only
Yeah.
ones that matter, right? Oh, and you're going to pay for it. Um,
Yeah.
So no, I mean, there are a ton of challenges that we face, but I think it further, it makes us go further down the funnel in making sure that we have the right kids that come into the program. And it helps frame the story of like, okay, we as a collective and you as an individual are going to accomplish the things that we're going to accomplish in spite of these limitations, as opposed to, well, if we don't accomplish X, Y, or Z, it's because of these limitations that we have. So really framing everything to have a chip on our shoulder, to understand that we just need to work harder than other schools with a driving range and a short game facility and a golf course, right outside their dorm room. And it helps us to a degree really identify the kids that want to take on that opportunity. So we're always trying to outkick our coverage a little bit in terms of the caliber of student athlete that we can bring in. But beyond that, it takes the right mindset. And I think we do a good job of creating a plan for each of the guys that do come in, where they know exactly where they fit in, they know the story that they're a part of, and ultimately, like, kids feeling a part of something is really powerful. And I
Mhm.
think that if we do anything really well, it's that.
Yeah, especially these kids coming from these programs where they just feel so replaceable, right? Like they know where they stand, and obviously these guys you're getting aren't the number ones on those teams, and they're probably jostling in and out of lineups, and maybe not getting the attention that they would from a program like you. So I could see that. Like, hey, you come in, you're going to be our number two or whatever. You're definitely in our top three. You're going to play every tournament. We got some great tournaments on the schedule, and let's get to work.
Yeah, look, I mean, our and the facilities that we utilize they're awesome, right? I mean, once you got to drive 25, 30 minutes, but once you're at Torresdale, say what you want about the place. I've heard you guys talk about it on here before. I think it's
Well,
an awesome I think it's an awesome qualifying course for a collegiate golf team to build discipline, to build mental toughness, to
mhm.
not break all 14 clubs in your bag. Um, big
Yeah.
double-sided range. We utilize Green Valley, which is, a softer version of that, which an old William Flynn design, just
Hmm.
a good quality place. And then there's Liberty Hill, the other Union League course, which is the antithesis of Torresdale, in big, modern, massive greens, some flat spots out there. Once you're at these places, like, the golf that you're going to play is as good as it gets around the country from a golf course standpoint.
Hmm.
But the other things, right? The cold weather, the location in the city, like it's got to be for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, Torresdale. Yeah, no, the range is great, and like you said, if you're trying to if you're trying to get some kids to quit, yeah, just keep sending them out there every day, and
Yeah, it's how we thin our.
You'll see who's not. You'll see who's committed and who's not pretty quickly. You know, going around in 40 putts is not for the weak-minded.
Exactly right.
Green Valley's good. I think Green Valley is the quintessential gap qualifying course. Like anytime there's a qualifier there, just sign me up. There's no excuse. There's no excuses out there. It's very out in front of you. It's not tight, right? It's not there's no gimmicks. I like
It's not.
it.
It's good. It's fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there. I agree. I think it peaks at it peaks probably at Philly Am's sister course, or maybe one year it could host a mid am, something like that. But I think it's very, very. I think it's just quality.
Yeah,
I say that with bias.
Yeah, I know no, I agree. I think it's a restoration away from being like, last time I was out there, the bunkers were lacking a bit, and some of the placements and just the overall edges, and
Yeah,
it
so they
seems
did
like,
a full bunker restoration last year. So
oh
the
wow,
bunkers have all been redone. It's made a massive difference, both in playability and also optics. It's getting there.
that's awesome. Because I think of like the third hole out there, for instance, the par five, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
hole I'm always like, what a beautiful hole this could be. But like you're out there and you got those dirty bunkers with hornets flying around. It's just it just doesn't have
Yeah,
that same vibe. But I could see that really popping with some white sand and some nice edges.
all those bunkers up the left are gone.
Okay.
It's all just going to be like grown up rough now.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. A couple of those were dated.
They're terrible.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. You guys got you mean at the end of the day, you just want championship golf courses, right? Whether they're fair or not fair or whatever it is, it's like you want a course that if you stick somebody out there and they shoot even par, you want it to be a good score. And I think all three of those courses give you guys a good barometer on that.
Totally.
So transitioning to the spring season, I was looking at your schedule. I can't believe you guys are playing a tournament for February 11th. I remember you saying that you guys had some success right down in Florida in a February tournament last season. How are you guys ready to go at that time of the year, being a Northeast school?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a crapshoot, right? You never know what you're going to get. February 11th, you're teeing it up and it means something. So this year we'll be down in Puerto Rico over those dates. But I mean, I think that there's value in taking practice indoors for a period of time, as long as you continue to work on your body, to work on your processes. I mean, we have technology inside that allows us to know what the ball is doing. We've been very fortunate with weather the past couple of years to be able to get outside a decent bit in January and February just to see the ball fly or play a few holes here or there. But staying mentally sharp, I think, is the biggest thing. So throughout the January, February months, the guys are we put them into like practice partners. We put them into pairs strategically. And we build in 4 practices a week in the golf room for nothing crazy, maybe an hour and a half of just solid work each day for the 2 guys together. So the room's reserved for them at that period of time, built in. And then we'll wherever we're going first, we'll try to get down there a day or 2 early to get to play a little bit of extra golf. It's really, I find, like the short game that needs the most work once you get to where you're going, just to usually off Bermuda grass, get comfortable hitting all the shots. And yeah, I mean, look, to win the first event out of the gate last year, I think caught everybody a little bit by surprise. We did that in more dramatic fashion. It was awesome, and it was a testament to a lot of the things that we've talked about on this call. Like, hey, Northeast school, it gets cold, blah blah blah. Well, don't say there's not a way, right? Because with the right mindset and the right group of guys and the right work that's put in, it's clearly doable. So I don't think that we view it like we're going to come out with some rust. I think that we are very careful about the expectations maybe that are placed on the result of the tournament. And we're really looking to go through each day, holding our head high, hitting every shot to the best of our abilities. But ultimately, we got to start at some point. We might as well start sooner.
Yeah, and I think with your recruiting too, the fact that, like you're saying, embracing this mindset of, hey, obstacles that we have, it's one thing to say that, it's another thing to do it. And last February coming out and winning that, it's pretty cool to be able to see that come to fruition and be able to say, hey, look, we've done this in the past and we can do it again. It's funny that you're riding this undefeated streak into this tournament. It just couldn't be like an odder situation, right? Versus playing some of these local tournaments down the road at Sunnybrook, and now you're flying out to Puerto Rico against a strong field, and with guys who probably haven't teed it up in a tournament in 3 or 4 months. So it'll be interesting to see.
Totally. Like I said, you know what? We've got to find a way to measure ourselves based on, things outside of where we stand at the end of the tournament. I think going into the spring, for us to think that we're going to come out of spring undefeated, like, we can strive for it all we want. I think that it's nuts, but the group, who knows? I would have said that was nuts about the fall. So, look, we play some really good teams this spring. We've got our, we're trying to get ourselves ready for the end of the year. We've got to find ways to measure ourselves that aren't determined by where we are on the leaderboard at the end of a tournament. Of course, that matters, but we've got to keep that expectation word in our back pocket.
With swing work over the off season, how much of it is you versus their private coaches? I mean, I'm sure it's player dependent, but generally speaking, are there guys that just solely work with you, or does everyone have their individual coach?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself anybody's swing coach, right? I'm there to consult when asked. I'm there to work in tandem with their swing coach. I'm there to keep an eye on certain things and to be able to diagnose, there's nothing that is mechanical or structural that I'm very focused on with any of our guys. I do try to stay as far away from a swing standpoint. I know enough to be dangerous. I am far from an expert. If guys want an opinion, I'm happy to give it, but I prefer to work, more in tandem as part of their team than as the swing coach. Now we have guys that don't have swing coaches that just are looking for some direction. So maybe there's a feel here or a feel there that I can give them to just kind of help them get closer to the pattern that they're trying to create. But there's nothing very mechanical about anything that I'm offering.
Yeah, no, it sounds like me. Yeah, like you're not out there giving unsolicited advice. If someone comes to you, sure, you'll take a look and you can point them in somewhat of a direction, but yeah, at some point they got to see a real expert, right?
For sure. Yeah, I'm urgent care.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah, night before a tournament, I got nothing. I can't get any worse. Like just give me something.
Here's some Tylenol.
Yeah, try to get me a feel. Moving on to some lighter stuff. Would you crack the starting lineup on your current team?
Oh man, I've thought a lot about this. It depends if I have a chance to kind of practice or ramp up or work on my game.
We'll say you do. Okay, you're practicing like the guys. You got nothing going on. You're a college kid. You're throwing out there. What do you think?
They would say no. I would say yes.
If you did make it, what number would you be? Like what guys are you just like, hey, these 2 or 3 guys are just clearly better than me, but I could mow down a couple of these 4 or 5 guys.
And I guess anywhere between 3 and 5, I could slot in at, depending on which side of the bed I wake up on.
Gun to your head, life's on the line. You need someone on your team to make a 6-footer to save you. Who are you picking?
Drew Nicholas.
I wasn't expecting that much conviction. Love it.
He's unfazed by anything. So I'm convinced that, my life wouldn't be all that important to him. So he'd slide it right in.
The Drexel Mount Rushmore. So not including current players. I'm not going to put you on the spot with them, but any historical players, who do you got out there?
Just that I've coached.
I'll say, the guys right? And obviously not dating back to the
Yeah.
mid 90s or whatever, right? But as soon as you've kind of had a pulse on what's going on there.
Chris Crawford, Connor Schmidt I think those two are very easy. Probably Sean Seminetz and Joseph Dance.
Okay. I don't know much about Joseph.
Joseph was part of the team that I inherited. Statistically, Joseph wouldn't. It's probably because I couldn't pick one of Angelo or Jeffrey Cunningham. Both those guys had awesome careers. Joseph was part of kid from Richmond, Virginia. Grew up in Qatar, actually. He was just one of the most naturally gifted athletes that I've ever been around. I played a lot of pickup basketball with him, but he was just a gifted golfer. And beyond that, one of if not the best human beings that I've ever been around. And the impact that he had on my transition into head coach was, he'll never know the impact that he had in captaining, how easy he made that transition. So one of the most, perhaps the best leader.
That's interesting to hear, as far as just, I didn't even really think of the transition from, player to coach, and how much having a leader or captain on the team could really help you there. Even like, you think of that stuff, I guess, more in other sports, but with golf, you're essentially still a kid when you start coaching at the age you did, right? What's it been, 7 or 8 years now?
It's been 8 years now. So it was 24 or 5. So yeah, I mean, look, I was on the team with a handful of those guys. It was a unique circumstance, but Yo was all business, and he made sure that everybody else was too.
When I asked around about you, there were 4 words that repeatedly came up: great guy, slow player. I have to ask you, is there?
I will refute slowest player in gap. I will not refute slow.
Okay.
And I'm much faster than I used to be, but slow nonetheless. And I don't know that I'll ever be fast, but my goal is to keep getting less slow. Accurate. I can't refute that I'm slow. Slowest player in gap, though, I can't take on.
So then I'll put you on the spot in gap competitions. We'll narrow it down to guys who actually play in majors and compete, right? So maybe that's what you're the slowest in. Because obviously, yeah, if we throw across the whole region and we got 55,000 golfers, that's a tough one to really take on. But anyone in gap competitions you think is slower?
Oh man, I got to throw some people under the bus here. I mean, Brownie's slow.
Okay.
Chris Lang Jr. slow, and I love all these guys, so this is nothing personal. Who else? I mean, one of my former players, Jeffrey Cunningham, who lost to Brownie in the Philly Am final 2 years ago, is slow. That final match, I think, is still being played. And,
I've played with Jeff before in a qualifier, and he was definitely methodical, to say the
he's
least.
deliberate, for sure.
Yeah. I guess Brownie's just that much nicer of a guy than you that no one calls him out for it, right?
No, you can't. You can never say a bad word to Brownie. Like, you just feel like the worst person ever if you said a bad word about Brownie, which I now do.
Yeah, you're just waiting to get ganged up on by the other end, right?
No, but I mean, look, I'm bottom percentile of speed.
Yeah, it's just like any problem. You're self-aware of it. You're getting better. We all have a lot worse issues than being slow on the golf course. So you're doing
That's
all right.
awesome, though.
Back to Crawford, you mentioned him, and obviously he's the first name that comes to mind with Drexel Golf. And I know you're close with him. You got the caddy for him in multiple U.S. Open sectional qualifiers, 3 of which he got in. And then you actually got the caddy for him in the actual tournaments at Torrey and Erin Hills. I'd have to imagine you have some pretty good stories from those weeks. I was wondering, is there anything you think would be interesting to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I mean those both all of the sectional qualifiers were unique in their own right. I mean the Oakmont experience out there, just in terms of everything that took place out there. I don't know if you recall, but it made the Golf Channel. So the way that he got into that tournament was nuts. It was covered all through like Golf's Longest Day. It was the on the front page of usopen.com.
I remember
He
this.
made the 40-footer on the last hole for birdie to like knock 6 guys out of a playoff or something like that. It was lunacy.
Didn't one year he eagle 18 at Canoe Brook? Was that not the year? It was a different
No,
year.
it was a birdie.
It was a birdie. Okay.
But he played it up the adjacent fairway. Maybe it's like 13 or
13,
something like that.
Coming up the
Drove
hill,
it left. We played like 8 iron down there, and he hit like 6 iron up over the trees to like the back right of the green, and pin was back left, and he made the 40-footer. We were literally just trying to make par to like get into this playoff, and it was one of the most Crawford moments. It was the most Crawford moment ever. But we get out to Oakmont. So I look back at this. I don't know whether I regret this or not. I mean, his family friend who stepped in to caddy during the practice round that day definitely regrets my decision. But I stayed back. I think it was Tuesday night. Osberg made like a 30-footer on the last hole to beat me in the round of 16. I got right in my car to start to drive to Oakmont. And I look at all these texts. People knew that I was caddying for Chris. They're like, "Are you okay? Did you break your ankle, or what happened?" So there was a story on the Golf Channel that day. He had his family friend Billy step in to caddy for him in the practice round that day, and they were paired with Jason Day. And at Oakmont, they got those super steep bunker faces. And I guess that it was like had recently been watered. And Billy was trying to walk up the slope to grab a rake, and he slipped and he broke his ankle while filling in for me. So I get out there that night to the house that his family had rented for the week, and Billy's sitting there on the couch with his leg way up in the air. And I stepped in the next day. That was the one US Open that I didn't caddy in, the actual tournament. So my mom was getting married to my now stepdad at the Ace Club on that Saturday. So I'm walking my mom through on Monday of her wedding week how I'm, probably going to be caddying in the U.S. And she looks at me and she goes, "Ben, this is once in a lifetime. You get your ass to that wedding." And I said, "Well, Ma, it's at least twice in a lifetime."
Yeah, right. It's been 2 times already.
Yeah, let's not throw that around too lightly.
What chances are better, Crystal qualifying for a U.S. Open or your mom getting divorced again? Right?
Exactly.
You got to weigh the.
Exactly. Right. So, needless to say, I left Friday night. I was at the wedding, so I didn't get to caddy. I didn't get the caddy in there. Or I left Thursday night to get to the Friday wedding or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I didn't get to actually caddy in the tournament.
Luckily for you, he qualified for 2 more, right? So
so we go back to Canoe Brook the next year, and it was as dramatic as the year before was. It was the most seamless, stress-free sectional qualifier that I can imagine any individual having. So we go out to Erin Hills the next week. This was actually really cool. We got out there on Sunday before the week. We were the only ones on property seemingly on Sunday. The wind was blowing 40 miles an hour. We went to play the back 9, and we thought it was like, how is anybody going to finish 72 holes here? The rough was this high. So on that note, we go to dinner that night, Sunday night, and I think it was like a sushi place or a Japanese place we're eating at, and we look over, and Kevin Na is sitting at the table next to us by himself, And he looks over at Chris and makes eye contact, and he looks at him and he says, Maverick, right? Thinking that Chris was Maverick McNeely.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's like, no, not Maverick, but I am playing this week. It's like, I'm Chris, blah, blah, blah.
He does look a little bit like Maverick, a little bit, right?
I saw
mean,
it.
Yeah,
I saw it.
Not totally off, yeah.
The next morning we wake up to, I don't know if you remember that viral video of Kevin Na like throwing balls into the rough and like whacking like the weeds away, being like, how are we? Because he was like, he's asking us, he's like, what did you guys think of the course? Have you played today? We're like, it was really hard.
Yeah, like really. Like...
And then the next morning, this thing's going viral. And then probably the coolest part of that week at Erin Hills was the practice round on Wednesday. If you recall that week, that US Open, Steve Stricker had asked the USGA for like a special exemption, being from Wisconsin, hometown boy, all this. The USGA said no exemption here. So Stricker went to sectional qualifying and got in. Badass. So we're warming up on the range. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday morning, I can't remember. And we see our name pop up. We had signed up for tee time, and a couple other guys had jumped in with us. So it was Chris, it was Scott Harvey, who was the reigning US mid-am champ. It was Jim Furyk, and it was Jordan Spieth. And that was going to be our foursome for the day. So we get to the first tee. Very cool, obviously, walking down the first fairway, and we hear this kind of like this like chatter or like rustle behind us, and Furyk goes, hey guys, Steve's gonna play up and we're gonna play 5. And we're like, all right, we can do that. So for we were a 5-some for the front 9, us, Harvey, Spieth, Furyk, and Stricker. And it felt like the entire golf course was following our group, mainly because of Stricker. But I'll never forget thinking that Chris's ball striking was better than Jordan Spieth's. And I'll never forget Jim Furyk dropping like teardrop 3-woods into par 4s from 260, like they were 9-irons. And
what about Stricker's wedges? How good
silly.
did they look?
The short game, like watching these guys, I learned more in those 2.5 hours of watching these guys prepare to play a US Open golf course, like just from what they were doing around the greens, where they were dropping balls, and like see where Furyk was hitting balls from, and it'd be like, go hit balls from there, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I like that spot over there.
I think that guy knows what he's doing. Just follow him around. So it was like a monkey see, monkey do, but I was just like, this is really cool. So that I'll never forget that day of that practice round at Erin Hills.
Did Jordan shoot off any flares for you, all with the driver?
No, everything was pretty decent. There was nothing too crazy.
You said Chris was striking it better. I just thought maybe Jordan had a little case of his rights going. Nah, just like just the contact was better, huh?
It just goes to show you, like, everybody hits it good, you know?
Yeah. No.
At a certain level, everyone hits it good.
Yeah. It's at some point it just comes down to putting when you get guys that are that good and that on. And yeah, and obviously Jordan within inside 100 yards is just silly. And with Chris, like the US Open qualifying is so impressive. And you even take a player, like a Jordan and if you made them have to qualify every year, they wouldn't be batting 100%, obviously, and probably closer to what Chris is batting, right? Which is, around at this point, probably closer to 50%, right? Or at least in the last 6 or 7 years. It's just so difficult to do. What do you think prevents him from taking that approach or that just level of play to that next level, to be able to get on the Korn Ferry and have that success that there's no doubt he's capable of doing?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it is in like the structure of like what professional golf rewards, right? Like I don't think that it's that he doesn't play at that level or with that level of intensity on a weekly basis on the Latin America tour. Chris is an incredibly consistent player. And Chris, from a competitive standpoint, just brings it every single day. It's so dependent on when you play your best golf. It's not if you play your best golf, it's when you play your best golf. And it is, if it isn't during, the 1 or 2 weeks when you're right there in the mix, then I mean, you look at the last couple of years with him finishing in the top 12 or so of money list on Latin America, like, I mean, that makes you a world-class golfer. You just have nothing to show for it.
Right. He's right there, right? It's just,
yeah, and it
you're
just
splitting hairs, like trying to figure out what's the difference between him and the guy 30 spots ahead of him, right? Or 40 spots ahead of him. You're not talking about hundreds of guys, right? You're talking literally like, you can literally probably pick them out and say, these 50 guys I got to get better than, or whatever it is, right? Like,
it's razor thin. And I mean, you're watching guys that he's been right there within a tenth of a shot and stroke average of on Latin America, who take that step to Corn Ferry, and a couple of them now having their tour card this year. And like, yeah, I mean, it's just an incredibly punishing arena. There's not a lot of forgiveness, and it rewards, winning twice and coming in last in every tournament versus coming 5th or 6th every week. It doesn't reward that. In terms of on merit, progressing yourself to the next tour, if you will. So yeah, I mean, the kid's got the best head on his shoulders, and he has all the ability in the world. And I still firmly believe it's a matter of time. It's about having the stomach to keep taking gut punches. You want to talk about, Chris says this to me all the time, but you think we're sick. You want to talk about sick people. You look at some of these guys that are at it for years now, trying to take their professional golf to that super elite level. That's a sick group of guys, because it's painful.
It's so maddening. Yeah, it's hard to not lose your mind throughout the process. I mean, it's really not even an exaggeration, I think, to say that. I mean, Chris, I think a good example of, or a comparison to his approach, is what Eric Cole has done, the last year. He's been slumming around on the MLG tour for how long now? And it's funny, I don't know if you saw today, but he was out there today and just he went out there.
Yes, I saw something on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's like, of course this guy's playing.
Yeah, top 50 player in the world, I think he is now, and he just signs up and just goes, shoots 9 under. I played that course actually like 3 weeks ago. My dad's a member there, and he goes out and just shoots like a routine bogey-free 9 under. It's like, okay, yeah,
he did it at the Pittsburgh Field Club for I think it was that Fuhrer Invitational over the summer, and you got like a bunch of like really good, Corn Ferry guys, and I mean, I think Cole won by like 7 or 8.
Yeah, he's really, really good, and it's just amazing it took a guy this long for it to click, who was, just that good. But like you said, it's so razor thin. And then once you take that next step, and then you can kind of just run with it. Like once you do, you don't really know what could happen once you break that stranglehold.
Right. It's a wild world.
So getting into your golf a little bit, I feel like I'd be remiss not to bring it up. Like I said, you're the 2017 Gap Mid-Am champ, right? And I also hear maybe you have the course record at Medford Lakes. Is that true?
Yes, I think so.
That's such a weird one. I had to bring that up because it's like right down the road from my house, and it's just such a random place to have the course record at. It's got to be like 61 or 2, right? It's not a hard course. Like, I mean, obviously, to shoot that, whatever, it's amazing. But I'm just saying, I would have to think it's low.
Yeah, 62.
Okay.
The backstory. So my wife is from Marlton. Her uncle is a member there, and we've played a bunch of golf. I've played in the member guest there with him a couple of times. I actually think it's a really fun golf course. I mean, anywhere is fun if you shoot that score, but it's a cool place. And I just kind of blacked out on the back 9 that day.
It is fun. Yeah, I had a qualifier there a couple years ago, and I know you're no longer on the qualifying circuit. You're an exempt guy, which is which is a nice spot
Except
to
for the
be in.
Philly Open, it's an impossible tournament to get an exemption into.
I was gonna say the Philly Open's always a tough one. That's your token qualifier of the year, right?
For sure.
How do you do in those like when you do have to qualify for that? Do you pretty much just go out and qualify almost every time, or no? I haven't followed you.
No, I
Yeah,
mean,
50-50.
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, it was, yeah, 2 years ago, I think it was the State Am. I shot 64 at Indian Valley and medaled in the State Am qualifier. Went to Riverton 2 days later for the Philly Open qualifier. I think I shot 74 and missed by two. And it's just
Yeah.
a weird game, right? Where, I mean, 74 might not have done anything like terribly, but I just like didn't
Yeah.
qualify. Like, I guess I don't get to go play cricket this year. So it like stinks, but that's qualifying. At least it was at a place like Riverton and not some of the other places that they could be.
Yeah, I was out there that day. It did play pretty tough. It was firm and it was windy, and you could see
For
like yeah, you could
sure.
you could lose a couple shots out there. I could see how a better player could have a bad day and shoot a 74 or five. And it's getting harder to qualify for this stuff too now. I mean, back when
Everybody's good. I don't know when this happened, but like 74 was, shoot, it was a shoe in for everything 6, 7 years ago. And now it's like, you got like 8 guys under par at a Philly Am qualifier. It's like, what's going on here?
I know it's
I don't know when
crazy.
that happened. Same thing in college golf, where like when I was in school and when you were in school, like if you shot 75 every day, you were like a world beater.
I
And
know.
now it's like you're just like, thanks for coming, you're getting lapped.
Yeah, I don't know when that changed or why. My buddies and I always talk about it, how hard it is to get in stuff around here. I mean, and you look at even going north, like up to the Met Association, everybody up there says it's actually harder to qualify for a Met event than it is a US Mid Am or, you know, a US four ball, right? Like, cause
Yeah. Well, they
I
take so
played,
few guys too at those qualifiers.
yeah, the Med Am this year was at Friar's Head, so obviously it was
Right.
a big draw. And I had nothing going on this summer. I was, my job was pretty chill, and I had nothing better to do. And I drove up there to play in a qualifier. But what a waste of time! But they took three guys, and I think I think the number was 4 under.
It's nuts.
And
Yeah. I
yeah,
want no
yeah,
parts of that.
yeah. It's just like, yeah, you go out and you have, for me, it would be my career, tournament round and shoot 3 under and I miss it by one. It's like, I'm glad I didn't do that. Right. And
Yeah, exactly. Waste it.
I'm glad I got rained out and left after 5 holes or whatever it was. But man, what a debacle. But yeah, no, it's getting tough. And I guess part of it's expanding the region, right? Expanding the association to the anthracite. They
Sure.
got some good players there. And the fields haven't increased, right? So
No.
there's just less spots, and I do think they set the qualifiers up a lot easier now. Not saying I'm complaining because I'm thankful for that, but I remember playing in 12, 13, 15 years ago, and if you look back at some of the scorecards, they're actually longer or just as long as some of the championships would be today at the same courses. I think at that point they didn't have the data or weren't worried about pace of play as much. I remember one year where they had a qualifier at Medford Village for the Patterson Cup. It was back in 2008. I don't know if you've ever played there because you played Lakes, but they played at over 7,000 yards for a qualifier.
The medalist probably shot like 74.
I shot, yeah, exactly. I think it was 74 or five. I shot 80 and missed it by one in typical like bogey the last hole, miss it by one fashion. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. And now you go out there and they have a U.S. Open local qualifier there, every other year or every 3 years, and they play the same tees that they did for a Patterson Cup qualifier. Whereas like now, if they had a Patterson Cup qualifier out there, they play it from like 6,600 yards, right? Like
Yep.
literally like 400 or 500 yards ahead of where they used to play it. So it's
Yeah.
just yeah, I think that's part of it too. And obviously, like you said, there's so many guys that are around scratch now. It feels like everybody's a scratch
Yeah.
golfer. Like clubs have 30, 40 guys that are scratches.
Just play less golf. It's nuts.
Yeah, yeah, have some kids, right? Moving back to college golf, and two main things that I wanted to ask you. AimPoint, we play at the mid-am level. We all know mid-ams hate it, right? Or most mid-ams hate it. And I guess how prevalent is this in college golf? Like, do you have a lot of guys on your team using this? And if you go to a normal college tournament, what is the rough percentage? And I guess, do you see this as a problem at all?
I mean, in my experience, no. I mean, I utilize it here and there just as like data point. I wouldn't say that it's how I read greens. I think you have to know how to use it effectively, and it can actually help save a little bit of time. But there are obviously kids that, one, don't know what they're doing, and two, are utilizing it and taking forever. Um, Maybe not as common as you might think it is in college golf, but it's certainly there. Um, maybe to the even looking on tour, you don't see a ton of tour players straddling lines. It's
Mhm.
probably similar to that. I mean, if I'm out there, I'm feeling things with my feet. I'm doing all sorts of stuff on the greens, but I don't see it as an issue. I think that, if you do have a player that's utilizing it, you have to ensure that they know what they're doing, for one, and two, that they're doing it in a time efficient manner. Because I do think that there are positive data points to be collected from it, but it has to be done in a way that keeps things moving, for sure.
Any of the kids on your team using it?
Um, no, I wouldn't say systematically, but I would say also as a data point.
Right. Just a component of the process. And then the golf ball rollback, that news just got released a few days ago. And I guess I want to at least touch on it from my end, just playing in the local stuff. I, I just don't view length as an issue at our level, right? Like, I don't know how you feel, but I don't think anyone's out there overpowering any of these courses in our association in these championship events. And I think, if anything, we rarely even play any courses even close to being tipped out, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
and now all these courses did these restorations and put these new back tees in that hardly get used as is. I almost felt like we kind of, from at least from an amateur standpoint, we were at a good point. I'm not a real long guy, right? Like, if I'm hitting it good,
Same.
I can hit it 280 to 290 range, and to take 15 yards off of me, I'm not really looking forward to that. How do you
I'm the
feel?
same way.
Yes,
Um,
that's on the association level, and I just want to lead into a college level. Like, do you look at it even on that level where obviously swing speeds are higher, kids are going at it harder? Do you ever look at a tournament and be like, this is a joke, right? These kids are just overpowering these courses, and we got to do something here.
like, no is the answer. And if they are, then it's condition based, where like it's soft and it's slow, and the guys are bombing it, it's plug in, and then they're throwing darts into the greens, and that's when you get winning scores that are 20, 30 under par. But I think that that's rare. And if, like, you can still defend places with long rough and firm conditions, and I think that you see that week to week. And I love to see golf played that way because of the nuance and the strategy that goes into it. And I think that distance is a component of that. Like, of course, hitting it further yields better scores. I think the data backs that up pretty unequivocally. But like, I don't ever see it just being like, oh man, these kids just hit it way too far for this golf course. Even the kids that carry the ball, 290, 300 yards, which is long. So many other parts to the game that you've got to be great at. So I get bits and pieces of what they're trying to do. I mean, bifurcation probably made too much sense for them to actually do, like, I think I saw Rory put something out this week. He's like, do you really think that, like, you guys are playing the same equipment that we are? Like, they're playing a
Mhm.
different sport.
Right.
And to hurt John Smith, who's the 10 handicap at the club, who occasionally breaking 80, and I don't see the upside in that unless they feel that golf's gotten too popular and they want less people to play.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think our Marston Cup future odds for 2034, Ben and Bose just took a big hit.
Don't love us. Don't love us.
Man, yeah, it just it doesn't make any sense. I was curious from because I knew you would agree from an association standpoint because I don't think there's anybody in the association that would sit here and be like, this is just getting stupid. I mean, you see the scores, the old style courses from 1900 still hold up around here, right? Nobody's ripping these rolling greens and these other courses up. It's just I didn't know on a college level if it was different, but I kind of figured not.
Look, the kids who are really good. I mean, some of them hit it far, some of them hit it a little bit less far. Everybody hits it far enough to play golf, and driving the piss out of the ball helps you. But like to be a great complete player, you got to do everything else at an elite level too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see the impact that this has. I mean, I don't know. It's it's
Yeah,
goofy.
the thing for me too is, and then we'll move on. But I guess I don't notice that much of a difference from the current Pro V to like the original Pro V. Like, is there that? It does, like obviously when they have the professional 90 and the Bellatas, right? And you take that to the current Pro V,
Sure.
there's certainly a big jump. But I feel like in the last, I guess it's probably been closer to 20 years now, the evolution of the Pro V. I don't know the exact timeline, but I just don't think it's been that drastic where you're like, oh my God, this is just like, I don't see it.
Yeah, and you've had the combination of maybe a 10% uptick in the golf ball side, maybe, a 10 to 15% uptick on the equipment side. And you've had them running in parallel lanes, and that's where you've seen this booming chase and acceleration of
Mm-hmm.
distance. So it hasn't been just the golf ball. It hasn't been just the equipment. It's been both of them in like an arms race for the past
Mm-hmm.
10 years, let's say. And one of them is going to essentially stop or go slightly backward. But, you
Yeah.
know, I'm hopeful at least that it does end up putting more of an emphasis on some of the other areas of the game where we might hit it a little bit less. Um, but on a percentage standpoint, it might cost somebody else a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more and allow the other parts of, a shorter player's game to, come to the forefront. So we'll see.
Yeah, we can only hope, right? But no, you're right. There's definitely that compounding effect of the equipment and the ball, and it just seems as simple as just kind of just halting it, right, or keeping it where it is. Like I don't think it's gotten that silly, but yeah,
No.
it's it'll be interesting to see if that ever gets reversed or how this plays out. At least we have
The
some
whole
time.
thing, the whole thing's been strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's almost like some kind of agenda that
And
we're missing here
just
because it just
decided
doesn't.
one day, like, enough.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't seem
There,
logical.
there wasn't a problem.
Looking past this season for you guys with Drexel, if you go down your lineup, what's Drew? Drew's a junior.
Drew is a senior. Hopefully, so we have a waiver filed with the NCAA. Hopefully, he ends up with one more year.
Does he have pro aspirations?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. Does anyone on your team have pro aspirations?
Yeah, I think that they do. We've had some high level conversations with a couple of the guys that, maybe are a little bit of a ways away from having to make that call. But, preparation for that kind of thing can start whenever you decide that might be in the cards for you. So we've got a couple of guys that have had the conversation for sure.
I was looking at the rankings, and one I had to point out, you're 29 spots ahead of Utah, which is where Oscar came from, which is just so funny because I highly doubt he thought coming to some little Philadelphia school that he was actually making an
Yeah,
upgrade.
no, it's believe me, we saw it.
But you're ranked ahead of programs like UNLV. I saw you're right behind, USC. Um, you were just featured as a top 5 storyline in all of college golf in USA Today. Drexel Golf has officially arrived on the national scene, and How do you think this changes your recruiting? Do you think this is going to expose you to, a new tier of players? Does it change the trajectory of the program?
I think it does. I'd like to think that we've been on a trajectory and that this is part of that process in improvement and reaching new heights, right? You never really know where those leaps and bounds are going to come. But when they do, you better be ready for them. So, it makes telling the story a lot easier to be able to send a couple of links and be like, hey, as opposed to having to sit there and be like, I promise you, like, we're getting pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
no, like here we are. This is the group of teams that we are, in the vicinity of. People are noticing, Golf Week's noticing. We're featured in the local association. All of the coverage of it should absolutely make a difference for us, especially, if you're local. I think you've been paying attention, to an extent what's been going on. But if you're not, you have no reason to know a ton about us or our program. So when you have opportunities for higher level kids or transfers to be able to be like, hey, you're not coming to some no-name school. Like we know what we're doing and we're showing that now. And we don't feel like we've tapped out here. We feel like there's still some room for us to grow. Now you're telling a compelling story with some context and some proof some proof of concept, really. So I'm optimistic that, look, it's obviously very fresh. We just kind of started our next cycle of recruiting since the fall season stopped, and we signed a couple of guys to come in as freshmen next year. We'll see ultimately, but yeah, we better lean into this.
Well, the fact that you guys have a good schedule, I think, is huge, right? Because if you're saying all this stuff, if you're saying all this stuff and no knock on the Temple invite or any of this local stuff, but if you're just playing in nothing but that, it's kind of like,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's not going to intrigue many top players. But when they see that you're playing a schedule where it's like, I'm going to have a chance to be in this tournament and win a tournament as an individual against, great schools and great players. And I'm guaranteed a spot in these tournaments or close to it, right? For some of these better players, then that's certainly something that I would think they would find attractive.
Totally. One of the first questions that any kid asks, what does your schedule look like?
The Bandon, how'd you get out to Stanford? How did that come about?
I begged.
Did you? Yeah.
I asked Coach Ray. Maybe the first time I asked him was in 2018, and he was like, no, like we just don't have room. 2019, I think there was like a Golf Week article about something that we were doing at that point. I was like, hey, look at us. He's like, no. And then 2020, I emailed him again. He's like, you guys can come not this year, but next year. So we were supposed to go out for the first time in 2020. And we were pairing the Stanford tournament with Chambers Bay. We were going to do a whole spring break trip, go play at Stanford, then play at Chambers Bay, and COVID happened. And we were supposed to go to Bandon the following year. So thankfully, Coach Ray at Stanford said, you guys can come the following year. And then I reached out to the host coach at Bandon, and he was able to bump us. Back. We did, I think, Stanford spring 22, Bandon spring 23. And I think it was just enough asking where he like punted us 2 years down the road. And he's like, that day's never going to come.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, we're here. Nice to meet you. So that was really cool. We played like absolute ass that week. But it was a great experience to be out there for a tournament that well run.
That's actually a funny thought because I never really thought of it. But when you're a coach and you're begging to get in a tournament, you don't want to tell your guys like, hey guys, I need you to play well this week.
Guys, sorry, we're not going back to Stanford.
Yeah. Like you don't know how much I begged this guy to get us out there. If we go out here and chop it up, I'm gonna look like the biggest idiot.
Yep, there we were.
It's funny. Do you think you guys could be a perennial top 100 team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, look, it's hard. You're gonna have teams that are better than others. Guys graduate, they're hard to replace. But I mean, really strong culture, good recruiting, good leadership, good scheduling. If we can do those things consistently year in and year out, and continue to really communicate and have a plan with all of our guys, like I think we can get the guys in the door. Um, we've got to keep putting all those other pieces together every year. So, why not would be my response. I don't know, but why not?
Especially considering the quality of players that we have in the Northeast, even though it is, quote unquote Northeast golf. I mean, we really have a strong contingent up here. And there's not many dominant schools that really have that footing here to say, like, hey, everybody who's good goes here, right? There's nobody really that has that brand yet.
There's no Villanova basketball.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, no. No reason you can't keep being good, and the formula you're using right now, there's no reason it can't keep working. There's clearly a place for it in college golf, right? So it's almost
Be
like,
good
hey,
at what you're be good at what you're good at. I mean, there are
yep.
programs that are doing that aren't in Power Five conferences. So there's a blueprint for it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Last thing, I realized I missed this. I just came to mind. Somebody told me a story about you that you qualified for the USM a couple years ago at Rolling Green, right? And you were paired with somebody who shot 200 for the
Yes.
combined rounds, 100, 100 back to back.
On the dot.
I mean, I was thinking with you being how slow you are and that guy taking 200 shots. I mean, how bad was the course clog out there? How are you not penalized?
Yeah, I will say this. The kid was super nice and fast. He
fast.
set a land speed record for hitting 200 golf shots. And I will say that, I mean, I think the third kid in the group maybe shot 165 for the day. But after the first round, I feel bad telling this story, but it is an important glimpse into the day. The kid knocked it on in the first round. The kid knocked it on the seventh green in two. He had about 20 feet for eagle. It was a back left pin there. I hit it into like 3.5 feet. It was like a bouncer, roller, all the way up there. So I have this like 3.5 footer for three. The kid who hit the green in two, and this is not hyperbole, he made 12 on the hole. And I saw 13 golf shots from the time that we got to the green until I got to hit my 3.5 footer for eagle. So we finished up the first round. Me and my caddy went inside. We were like, I don't know. I mean, you think he's going to show up? I think I shot like 71 in the morning. It's like, do you think he's going to show up? Like I said to Kirby, I was like, just you saw what happened, right? He's like, oh yeah, I saw it. I'm like, all right, just making sure you're aware. That's all. Right. So like, there's no way he's coming back. So we're walking to the tee for the second round. He and his caddy are both standing there, double fisting transfusions. And I look at my caddy Carrie, and I was like, this can't be real life right now. And I played. I mean, the two guys were great. They took 1,000,000 shots, but they were really fast. They hold out. Did whatever they did. They hold out and they got off the green. And I had the freedom to take forever
that
round without having to worry about the clock because it was so hard that day. And I was taking my time on the greens, but it didn't matter because I was essentially playing as a one-some.
By
Even
yourself,
though the guy was shooting 100, they're just playing air hockey and getting the heck out.
Right.
And it was great. I played the round of my life. And they were nice kids, so their company was fine. But when they showed up on the tee for the second round, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, who would have thought that that might have been your greatest blessing? Maybe you got to try to get paired with those guys again.
It made the story. it made the story for sure. But as I look back on it, like if there was another guy in the group like grinding to,
Yeah.
I don't know how that plays out.
Yeah, a couple shots you're rushing a bit, or you just feel that like you can't fully soak into your routine and you're thinking about it versus just acting. It yeah, changes things.
Totally. It was wild though.
Well, that's all I got, Ben. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to following you guys this spring season. I think I speak for everyone in the area when saying that, and maybe even some folks across the country. So
That's awesome. No, this was a ton of fun. I appreciate you kind of shedding light on the program and on our guys, because they deserve all the pub they can get. They've been a special group.
yeah, absolutely. And
With the spring season, you guys get that chance of, hopefully moving on to regionals and getting a chance to see where you stack up against some of those top teams. So certainly some exciting stuff ahead. And like I said, I'm looking forward to following along.
That'd be a ton of fun. I hope we get that chance.
absolutely. Well, good luck with everything, Ben. Thanks again, man. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Bob.
I'll see you.